All right, we are live and we're back with another episode of the Move Well podcast. Today, it's just me, and Kevin Wynn. So we're going to be rocking and rolling by ourselves today. All this crazy weather, hoping that everybody is staying warm, staying safe. So Wade is back at home working remote today, but we were able to venture in the office for the first time since, Friday, I guess? And today's Wednesday and we're recording. So
it's the first time you put on actual, non-pajama clothes, I think, all week, right?
Yeah. No, my wife's been making fun of me because I got this new Nike sweatshirt for Christmas. It's like a navy blue and it's like the heavyweight kind of comfort colors type of feel. And she was like, have you taken that thing off since Christmas?
I've got this. So when I played in college, I played summer baseball in Alaska, unrelated to the weather. But I had a teammate that gave me this from UAB. He played at UAB and he gave me a pair of UAB sweatpants they use for practice. So this was 2017. It's almost 20 years. Wait, no. 2007. Sorry, okay. 2007.
So still almost 20 years then.
Almost 20 years ago. I wear these things almost every day, and I have a gray sweatshirt, so I call it the gray suit. You didn't know this about me.
No, I didn't.
I have a gray suit that I wear at home all the time. It's my winter outfit.
I love
house
that.
Outfit.
Your outfit.
Those sweatpants are so he practiced in them for 2 years, college baseball. Gave them to me. I wore them all the time, and I'm still wearing them 20 years later. Adidas brand.
Wow.
So they last. So if you're considering sweatpants, Adidas.
I was expecting like Reebok or something.
No, Adidas. Yeah, they're great.
Nice.
I'll wear the gray suit for the podcast one day.
One day you should come in.
Yeah.
Come in and wear it. I love that. Well, Kevin, did you know that most adults spend 6 to 8 hours a day on their cell phone?
I bet you
did know that.
I do know that.
Yeah. So that being said, today, and one thing that you're currently working on, if you all didn't know, Kevin in 2025 spoke at 2 HR conferences, right? SHRM conferences.
Yeah, state conferences. Smaller ones, but those are the larger.
Yeah, like actual HR conferences. Yep. And you actually got one of your talks accredited. What's like the credential on that?
SHRM, SHRM, Society for Human Resource Managers, just an accreditation for this talk. So basically, for HR professionals that came to those, they could get continuing ed credits to maintain their certification and stuff like that, which was cool. That was for me. I made a post on LinkedIn. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you may have seen it, but I had this thing that I created in 2017 called Vision 2020. It was all the things that I wanted to be true by 2020, and most of them felt out of reach and impossible. And one of them was I wanted to be doing public speaking. 2020 was not my launch to public speaking, but I was at least thinking about that almost 10 years ago. And it took me, it was 2025 when I really started talking at some bigger conferences. So it took me 8 years to get there, which was cool. So it was kind of neat to look back and reflect of where I was at. And I had never done any public speaking whatsoever. And then to be able to do that in 2025 was really cool. And it was just neat to connect with the audience and be able to share a lot of my story and a lot of my growth. And the digital detox today that we're talking about is not geared at shaming people for spending 6 to 8 hours on their phone. It's going to be, I would love the conversation to be very transparent, vulnerable, to talk about the struggles that we both have with it, and recognizing for me, the temptation that phone represents, just the escape from reality that it represents, the negative things that I can get from it. And I think all of us can, but also don't want to forget to recognize that phones aren't evil. I mean, they can be used for some great things, like Move Well. So I don't want to be a hypocrite here and talk about, everything on a phone's terrible, you should never use one. We utilize smartphones, smart devices to connect with our clients. I don't think our clients are spending 6 to 8 hours a day on Move Well. No. If they were, man, we would
Heck yeah, man.
I don't know if that'd be bad or good, but we want to encourage healthy utilization of the phone and have healthy boundaries surrounding phone usage. But obviously people are going to use them, and they are a tool that we also use to connect with people. So we just kind of want to level set that as we get in the conversation. Phones aren't evil. You're not bad for using them. In fact, we literally run a business off of our phones, part of our business at least, to connect with people, to help them be aware of things like this. And so while we're a tech-enabled company, we're also talking about, hey, is some danger here in some of these digital resources if we use them overuse them or use them in the wrong way. And so that's kind of the goal of the conversation, in my opinion, today, is to talk about healthy boundaries. How can you use this phone as a tool? Because that's what everything in life should be, right? Or most things. There are tools to help us be the best version of ourselves, to be who we were called to be and created to be. And if those tools slip to the other side, to where they're pulling us away from that, then we need to readjust our relationship to them. And I think for a large portion of society, we have slipped on to the other side, where maybe it's keeping us from being the person we're created to be rather than enabling that person.
Yeah, I agree. And like you kind of said, like prefacing all this with like, you're not being shamed. I mean, there was a point in 2024 when I was really, I'm not as active on social media as I used to be, especially like Instagram for me was the biggest one, you know? And it is, again, it's helpful in a lot of ways. But it got to a point where, I have my automatic, like screen time report that I get each Sunday, turned on. And I remember at one point it had said your screen time last week, you averaged, it was like 7 hours a day of screen time. It was like 7 hours, 21 minutes, something like that. And I was like, something has got to give. And I remember turning off all of my social media notifications. So now I don't even get notifications. Like if I get a message or if somebody likes a post or comments on a post, whatever it might be. And so obviously we'll get into those type of tactics. And I'll talk from like the, maybe almost
I'm just laughing. Your phone right now is like a spam
dude,
call
it's
central.
Crazy. It's crazy. That's what I get for buying off Temu, places like that. But yeah, just going through those types of things. And not just phones. I mean, everything has a good and bad side to it. So, not trying to make this like personal to anybody, but if you feel like a little bit bothered by it, it's like, oh, man, maybe I'll
maybe this pulling out something.
Maybe I'll like just consider this, because that's what was happening with me with the screen time report. I was like, okay, what's that matter? Then I'm like, well, geez, maybe I'm
well, and also, digital, when we talk about digital detox, it's not just about phones. I mean, obviously iPads kind of falls in that same category, but TV, we've been, as a society, me as a kid growing up, cable TV was the phone, right? I mean, like we kind of find different things to utilize, or it's, back then Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, whatever.
Gaming consoles,
right? I still call it Nintendo, because I don't play games, but and then of course I'm old enough to, I remember like when the internet, like when that came into our house, I was probably like 9 or 10 years old when we got our first Compaq, was the brand, computer, desktop, just massive computer. I spent countless hours on that. So, it's not just limited to phones, but now so much is encompassed in a phone, and the majority of us spend most of our digital interaction happens through a phone now. But for older individuals, maybe it's still the TV, maybe it's Fox News, maybe it's CNN, whatever, ESPN, whatever your channel of choice is. We spend a lot of time in front of these things. And I do hate that Wade's not here today, because he's kind of taken a pretty proactive approach on the TV side to see how that kind of, he was seeing how that negatively impact his kids. And I think you were talking about my SHRM talks, because what we're kind of developing this year is a new talk that's focused around digital detox that we're going to be giving at different HR conferences and to companies, and also including, if you're a MoveWell client, you're going to be seeing some resources in your app. We're going to have some mini challenges surrounding digital detox. Some of the cool apps that are out there that I think do a good job with this right now, one being Hallow. So Hallow is a huge prayer app. In fact, it's one of the most downloaded apps in the App Store now, which is wild for a prayer app to be one of the most downloaded apps. But their goal was also to not pull people into digital addiction, right? They didn't want to increase that problem, but they just like us recognized phones can be used as a powerful tool to connect people with God, to give them time to pray, to reset, whatever they're needing. So most of their resources on there are audio driven. So you can play it and then you can put the phone away and you're not staring at the screen, but you're still getting fed some great information and things like that. So they're kind of looking at their app. While it has a lot of the, stuff you can do in the app, I think their main goal is to pull people into more audio type stuff. So essentially it's almost like you're listening to the radio or a podcast or something like that. And I think they've taken a really cool approach to that and are doing a really good job. So I think it's a way of being cognizant of the dangers of too much digital time or screen time, but still trying to bring value to people and use it as a tool, like we said, to help them be who they're called to be. So again, Halo's doing a great job of that. And there's a lot of other people in the space that are already doing some of these things. But the thing I really like is now there's just research coming out to show some of the dangers of smartphones, but also, the effects of social media and what it can do, not only to adults, but obviously to children.
Yeah.
I mean, it has some
especially now.
Huge effects. So now I think there's a conversation around this now. I've been digital detoxing for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years now. Because I saw what it was doing to me, and it's cool that it seems like there's a bigger conversation in society now surrounding this. Just from people's personal experiences, I think is really what's driving it, because people are starting to realize, like you did, like, man, I'm spending way too much time on this thing. I've got to make a change here. I don't think people even saw that as a problem until the last couple of years. And now we're just a little bit more aware of that. And that's why we're developing talks and giving resources, and why we're having this podcast, because I think more and more people need to be providing real transparent experience, but also strategies to kind of move forward.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think. A couple of things. Well, one, before I forget, so we had a health fair for one of our clients last week, and I wish Kevin was there when this moment happened, because you would have fangirled over this guy. But we had somebody who
Why
attended.
Is it fangirl? I can't be fanboy.
Yeah. Okay. You can fanboy. You can fanboy over him. We had this gentleman come in and attend the health fair. And I was telling him about our app, like, hey, have you signed in? Do you need help getting on your account? And he had said, oh yeah, I'll do that when I get back to my office. I was like, well, if you're like tech friendly, essentially, I was like, we do have an app, so it's easier to use. And he was like, oh, I won't be able to do that. And he pulled out a flip phone.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I remember and he pulled it out and flipped it open. And I remember yelling at Wade. I was like, Wade, look at this. And so the guy pulled it out and flipped it open. I was like, man, I wish Kevin was here so he could, he could see it.
That's so cool that people are going back to flip phones now.
Yeah.
So cool.
And of course he was like an older gentleman, like not that old, but he was probably in his mid to late 50s. So, I think some people are just more comfortable with that, and they don't necessarily need, the more modern era of technology. But kind of to your point too, I think acknowledging and not like shaming yourself for using your phone or your devices in general, especially if you're using a platform like used Halo as an example. And for us, we like to think that you utilize MoveWell as something that's helping you and not necessarily making you put down your phone or your tablet, whatever, but like a mindset shift, something that's going to better yourself, because all that translates to
and we're using it as a digital tool to connect providers and specialized care, care plans and things like that, and provide access. So what we found back in the day when we started the development of this is, man, we want to give tools and resources. We want to give highly specialized care, the same care that sports teams get, professional athletes get, and bring this to the general population. One of the barriers for that, one of the number one barriers, is when we started looking at why don't people use physical therapists, dietitians, personal trainers on a regular basis, is because they couldn't afford them. So we wanted to figure out a cost-effective way to provide that. And that's what led us to the employer space, is we can create this as an employer workforce optimization solution, employer benefit solution. It could be provided to these employees at no cost to them. So that was the number one thing, was how do we provide access? Well, through the employer space was one way we could do that cost effectively. The second thing that we started looking at was, okay, well, if we're going to come to the employer space, how do we reach as many people as possible? Well, it was an access problem. We couldn't have, a provider on site to hit all 3 shifts at a factory, unless, it'd just be so cost prohibitive for the company to pay for 24 hours of care to a specialized coach. How can we bring this unlimited access and access when it's convenient to a huge number of people? Because when you're talking about an employer space, well, we're getting a contract with maybe a company that has 1,000 employees. So a big number of people come in. How do we give access to them? Well, a physical clinic, maybe off-site was going to be hard for people to drive. Or what if they have multiple locations in different states, or in some cases, different countries, like some of our clients? Well, we got to give virtual access. This was all developing prior to COVID, which was interesting because when we were pitching this idea to companies at the time and employers, it was kind of weird. I mean, we weren't used to virtual digital care. Telehealth was just kind of coming on the scene, but you weren't hearing anything about, physical therapy. That's for sure. There was some remote coaching programs, but very low touch, kind of more just, here's a package program. You purchase it and get the program, but not to the extent that we were trying to do. COVID was really a blessing for us because it normalized the delivery we were trying to execute on. And so yes, it's a phone or it's a web interface from your computer, but we see it as life-giving because it's providing access, it's providing accountability, it's providing care that people couldn't normally afford. And now obviously with our push now into the direct-to-consumer market, we're kind of going backwards from what a lot of companies do. Typically people start direct-to-consumer, hey, just anybody can buy a subscription to this, and then they go into the employer space. We've gone completely reverse of let's use the employer space, which is hard. It's messy. I mean, we're in the weeds of it every day. And anybody that works in employee benefit or employee optimization programs like we're doing, there's a lot of levels that you got to work through. There's a lot of communication gaps you got to kind of bridge. There's ROI data you got to come. There's there's all this stuff, but it's been great because it's really helped us refine our processes, figure out what works, what doesn't. And we still have to grow in a lot of areas. I mean, one of our pillars of our company is growth oriented, right? So we're always trying to improve that and get better. And we definitely have a lot of room to grow. We're still relatively new and we're kind of forging a new market, so we're kind of going to places that are unknown. And then we're coming back and figuring out, okay, well, how do we build the best way to get there instead of just continually forging, let's come back and let's build a trail to get there. But now that we're coming to the direct to consumer space, we've kind of been forged through fire and have a great product that anybody can get now, and have that high level care that's really focused on business leaders, which really fits in nicely with our workforce approach. So maybe our workforce isn't ready for a whole program, but those business leaders that we know are taking on so much stress, are probably neglecting some of their health. Maybe the financial part isn't maybe as big of a barrier for them. Maybe they can afford access to care, but they haven't. Either they felt guilty to utilize it. Maybe they are well in some areas, but not physically or spiritually well, and some of these other areas of wellness that program kind of attacks. And then if they're working on their well-being and their health, we know that's going to have a trickle-down effect to their whole organization. So excited about that. But again, the whole point is access and tools and resources that are life-giving.
Yeah. And you already kind of touched on like the data behind some of these things. I know you probably have some numbers, but and you can elaborate on more of this, but like this is just a small example, and you can use this specifically, or you can go into some other stats as well and elaborate a little bit more. But one of the things that I looked up was how it impacts your sleep. And it says that screen time in general, of course, most of this is referring to like nighttime. Like additional screen time at night mostly can reduce up to 30% of your sleep quality.
Yes.
So regardless of the number, it impacts your sleep quality,
yes.
how well you're sleeping, how long you're sleeping, etc. So I'd love for you to go into like some of that.
Yeah.
Too.
And then at some point we'll share kind of our personal journeys too. I think would be interesting because I think we experienced what all the data is showing. Everybody in our company has experienced at some point. And that's why we're all kind of taking different approaches, but approaches that fit our life appropriately. So, we think about sleep quality. We think about sleep, right? And we just focus on the number, and it's important. We know we need to have 7 to 9 hours of sleep to really operate at optimal efficiency. We know that if we're not sleeping enough, we're going to have some other potential long-term health effects, short-term and long-term health effects. We know that cognitively it can impact us. It's going to make it, from a safety standpoint, we work with a lot of safety professionals. We know that employees that are not sleeping a lot, maybe they're working swing shift, or marine transportation companies that we work with, they're doing 6 hours on, 6 hours off for 30 days at a time when they're out on the vessels. That's tough. And we need to, if we're getting limited sleep, it makes us more susceptible to making bad choices or unsafe choices potentially, or just not thinking things through. Having that brain fog can lead to accidents. It can lead to injury. We know that there's a direct correlation between sleep duration and vehicle accidents. I mean, there's data that shows all this stuff. But it's important to not just focus on the number. So you could be getting 8 hours of sleep, but your sleep quality is terrible. So maybe you never really get in a good rhythm, or maybe you may not even realize it, but you're waking up a lot through the night, or you're never able to get in that deep sleep. And so what the research shows is if we're spending a lot of time, especially before bed, looking at a screen, we are never really able to get that good quality sleep. So maybe, yes, we have the duration that's recommended, but if we're never getting in that really good deep circadian rhythm, we're still going to have the brain fog. We're still going to have the negative health effects. And then what comes out of that is a lot of stress, anxiety, other unhealthy habits. Maybe, we're feeling exhausted, we're tired. So we're eating, more calorically dense foods, stuff that maybe has more carbs, and it just feeds into everything.
Yeah.
Right? So sleep quality is so important. So it's more than just a number. It's more of looking at, okay, well, what's actually happening in that time frame that I'm asleep. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's crazy is, 6 to 8 hours of screen time is average, right? So if I'm sleeping 8 hours and I'm supposed to be working 8 hours, the other part of my life would be the next 8 hours. And now I recognize that most people are working plus they're on their phone. Yeah. Let's be realistic here. And that's what my talk is really focused on a lot is presenteeism. How present is your workforce? If they are looking at their phone constantly, if they're distracted by notifications constantly, they're going to be less present, less efficient, also more susceptible to injury, more susceptible to making poor or unsafe decisions at work. But let's just assume that at work you're locked in. So a manufacturing facility or environment where phones are not allowed on the floor. I see that rule all the time, but I also see the phones out on the floor all the time.
Yeah.
But let's just assume that phones are not allowed on the floor and you are the perfect employee and you're never checking your phone. That means the next 8 hours of your life is spent staring at a screen, which also means you're probably sedentary, which also means you're probably isolated from those that are around you. So we've all seen the families, and I'm guilty of this too. You're at dinner with your family and everybody's on a phone, or you see a group of friends. I see this a lot with like middle school age kids, high schoolers. They're all together, but they're all on their phones.
Doing their own thing. Yeah.
Doing their own thing. So they're actually isolated. So they're isolated in groups, which is so interesting and fascinating. So likely those 8 hours that you are free, if you're spending 8 hours on your phone, you're spent isolated, you're likely looking at stuff that maybe could be anxiety inducing. You could be comparing yourself to other people on social media, because we know everybody wants to look perfect on social media. We know, and I have no problem with influencers whatsoever, but they don't show everything, right? And there are some good ones out there. I would say Abby does that. Abby that used to work, Abby Luckett now. They used to work for us, does a good job of being transparent on the good and the bad, but most people don't do that. And so what do? We end up comparing ourselves. And you have a quote you always say, comparison is what?
The thief of joy.
The thief of joy, right? And so again, it makes us feel like less of a person. So we're just reinforcing our these negative thought patterns that come into our head that produce anxiety, that make us feel like less of a person, that definitely aren't life-giving. They're sucking life out of us. So again, there's nothing bad about all these platforms and all these things. I mean, we're on YouTube streaming this live, right? Yeah. But as having healthy boundaries with those, and typically if you're going to reduce that screen time, those boundaries automatically get a bit healthier, right? Like if we reduce our screen time, we're likely using our phone more as a tool rather than a distraction.
Yeah.
It is the best distraction device on earth, in my opinion. I mean, that's where I want to go to, when I'm stressed, anxious, worried, mad, angry, I want to distract myself. And whether that be, through, sometimes it's food, but a lot of times it's a lot easier to go to my phone or to go to the computer that I sit on all day for work too.
Yeah, and get on Zillow.
Yeah, get on Zillow. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, get on Zillow. Well, I blocked Zillow, but I found workarounds. So we can talk more about that later.
Yeah. No, I think it's important to talk about. Well, really, I think like the stats and stuff are cool, but the practical way that people can relate to us is like talking through our experiences and being like, okay, I felt that too. Like, I don't feel like an idiot or whatever. I don't feel stupid for being on my phone for 8 hours a day because other people have experienced it. I know for me, I think it's probably a good time to just talk through like our personal experiences and ways we've maybe tried to mitigate that.
Yeah.
In 2022 was like right before I started at MoveWell. So January 22, I bought a camera. My daughter wasn't born yet. I was still newly married, and we were both working full time, but we had a lot of time to do hobbies and just do other stuff. I almost said like do cool things. We can still do cool things with our kid, but
there's nothing cooler than having your daughter paint your fingernails.
Oh, nothing better, man. Yeah. Well, I ran Tunnel Hill with my toenails painted actually. So, and it took like a week to get them off because they were all falling off. But at that point, I'd bought a camera. I started doing a lot of YouTube videos and dove like really heavy into social media and like posting about my journey there. Started at MoveWell, and then we had our daughter, and I just started to find myself really consumed in my phone. And I remember that one day for like a couple weeks straight, I got in a report about my daily average screen time. So it wasn't like my highest screen time day. It was my daily average. Right. It was like
always comes through on a Sunday, right?
Yes, on a Sunday. Yeah. And it was like, 7 hours and 21 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I know most of it was coming from like laying in bed scrolling on my phone.
Yeah.
But then when I would be at home, I would be doing it. And I know I was doing it when I was at work and like scrolling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, throughout the day, I'm constantly scrolling on my phone. So I remember turning all notifications off for all social media, except for like Facebook, maybe something that I didn't really get much through.
It's for old people.
Yeah. For old people, which I officially am an old person now that you have a kid. And I remember within like 2 months, it went down to like 4 hours and 20 minutes. And even then I was like, that's still high, but
it's
from
amazing.
7
Almost
hours,
a 50% reduction.
Yeah. From 7.5 hours, basically a week per day, it went down to like 4 hours. And even now I still get my reports and it hovers around 4 hours a day, and I'm like, most of that is, when I'm at home doing something or, I'm using my Maps app or listening to music or have YouTube up, whatever.
Yeah, I hate that. Like Maps will kind of screen time. Like
it sucks it away.
I'm not looking at my phone when I do that.
I know. Yeah. So whatever. I mean, even for me, like turning off your notifications or deleting apps that you don't really utilize, or maybe that you utilized but in a small capacity, and then you open it and you get sucked in. But I think for me, the biggest thing was like the notifications. You get a notification. What would happen to me is I would get a notification for Instagram or TikTok, and then I would click on it to see what it was. And the next thing I know, it's 20 minutes and I've been scrolling. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's like genius, but it sucks for a person that you have other things to worry about.
Why do you think Apple invented a watch to go
genius.
with it? It's genius. I mean, so I can put the phone away and I can go, but it's always attached to me. Those notifications are always attached to me, and it's just always there. It's always a constant reminder. For me, I mean, my story, but I'll share it again. I was doing all the exact same stuff, same pattern, and really got challenged by a few close friends of, I think they could tell I think they could tell I needed to do something. I think they could tell I was having stress, anxiety, and don't you hate that when you have somebody you really respect and then they challenge you and they're right and you have to do it, but you don't want to and you don't want to let go of it. I mean, that's where I was at. One of my best friends in the world, his name's Janai Shields. He's like, I was talking to him about this because I got challenged by another friend and really a mentor of mine who is an app developer that has a flip phone. And because I had all the excuses in the world, like I'm building a tech company. I need this, I need that, I need that. He's like, well, I'm an app developer. I've made the app that you're using and I have a flip phone. And I was like, whoa, okay. So he kind of put this bug in my ear and I'm like, okay, well, I obviously don't have an excuse because this person can do it. But I didn't want to do it. And so I'm talking to my other friend, Janai, who is just an amazing man of God and just also a really good friend and cares about people in his life and wants to steer them appropriately. And he's like, I remember one day he called me. I was sitting at the old office on Adams Street. I was sitting in the leather chair there, and he's like, I think you need to get off your phone. Like, I think you need to do something. You need to flip phone or whatever. And I don't really, it was out of the blue. I was like talking about, I'm stressed about this or that. And then, so I wasn't talking about my phone at all. He knew that I had told him about this other person that was, had the flip phone. So he kind of knew that. I think he knew I was intrigued by that or challenged by him, but we were not talking about it. And this discussion had not come up for a while. And then just out of the blue, he's like, I think you need to let go of your phone. I was like, it just stung, it hurt. And so I didn't do it, but it was just like, okay, that was another prompt of like, and I believe as a Christian, we share faith on here. We're both Christians. And I think God speaks to you, or the Holy Spirit speaks to you through other people a lot of times. And I always, the older I get, the more I try not to diminish when I hear things like that. Because one, it's out of the blue, and likely that didn't just come out of anywhere. Like I think he was prompted. I think he was prompted. That's just my personal belief to say something, not just from his own intellect, but also the Holy Spirit prompting him to say something. And he's such a man of God that he knew that he needed to say something when he felt
and
that.
Probably didn't even. I mean, a lot of times we've probably people have those interactions and they don't realize that that's what it is. But I'm sure that's what it was.
That goes back to, without diverting too much, of surround yourself with really good people, right? Surround yourself with people that are going to make you better, that are going to challenge you, that are going to get you outside of your comfort zone. And he's definitely one of those people for me. And just so thankful for him. And he's the godfather of one of my children and everything. He's just an amazing guy. So anyways, he challenges me. And of course, kind of like you with your screen time report, I'm like, I don't have a problem. This is another area of my life that I can ignore. It has nothing to do with the stress or this anxious feeling I'm feeling here, or just whatever, this prideful stuff that I'm feeling, that I'm working through, this anger that I'm feeling. Like, this phone has nothing to do with that. But after he prompted me, the more I reflected on it, I started seeing a direct correlation between all those things. And no, it's not like the root cause of all that, but it is exacerbating all those. Like, it is just feeding those. It's a fuel source to those things in me that I was trying to control, root out, just not have a part of my life anymore. I mean, nobody wants to be anxious and stressed. And I definitely still have that. And I think I'm kind of predisposed just naturally to those things. I don't know why. But I think I just am. That's just my first go-to with anything. And so, yes, this phone was just feeding that. It was just feeding that. It was that fuel source for that. And I started realizing that and seeing that. And it all kind of culminated one night when Everly, my now 5-year-old, she was just a year old. We'd moved into our new house. I think this was in 2020. So I was rocking her, and I was scrolling through social media. Yeah, it was 2020, actually, because it was just, it was such a crazy time. And there was just, no matter what side you were on, there was just so much information being fed that just got people frustrated. And I remember feeling that, I just remember feeling frustrated by, stuff people were posting or whatever. We all felt that back then. And to an extent, we all still kind of feel that now, but it was definitely at a heightened level back then. And, I was just angry. And I'm holding her and I'm rocking her. And I remember looking down, and I was missing an amazing moment of that I'll never get back. Like, there's going to be one day in my life. And I felt this other day with my oldest, Ava, who's 10. There's going to be one day where I will hold her for the last time. I think about that. Like, I'm getting emotional. Like, there's one day I will not pick her up anymore. I will not either physically be able to, or she's just be awkward or weird, or she's not going to want me to. She's going to outgrow that. And we have such a small window, and she's already kind of getting there. She's 10, like, if I do that, she's like, oh, put me down. That's weird. Whatever. She's starting to kind of push back on that type of affection. And obviously, as a father, your affection changes as they grow, but there's going to be one day that I will never hold Everly again. Like, I will not be able to have this moment. So there's a small, tiny window in my life, that I can have this. And instead of that, I'm getting angry at stuff on social media. And it would just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, okay, God, like I've got to change something. Because you have trusted me with this precious child, like this gift. And here I am just totally missing that, you know? So then I was just like, man, I've got to do something here. I've got to get control of this. So I was like, okay, all these days are coming back to me. So this was in November of 2020. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just give it 30 days. I was like, I'll start December 1st and I'll go to January 1st. You know, it'll make me more present during Christmas and all this kind of stuff. Help me kind of focus for the new year. It'll just kind of get me in the zone. And so like, I can do it for 30 days. Like I can do anything for 30 days. And so I was like, I'm just going to let go for 30 days. And then after that, I'll just go, you know, I'll have healthier boundaries. I won't be stressed anymore. I can just do this. And I won't get mad about social media stuff. I won't be prideful anymore about my Strava feed. And when I go for runs, like making sure it looks good. So when other people are looking at it, I won't care anymore about what people think of me on social media. I won't covet, you know, people's goods. I was just listening to a podcast from Francis Chan today talking about how we just covet so much. I'm like, that's a commandment. We shouldn't covet and desire other people's things. But I'm like, I won't do that anymore after 30 days. I will just, this will be like a cleanse for me and I'll be right back and I'll be perfect. And that was stupid to think that. Right. So anyways, I tried to come up with a plan, and there might be stuff like this that exists now that's written down out there, but I was just like, okay, I've got to do something to limit access. First off, I got to get off all these social media platforms. And I have maintained LinkedIn because you have to have it for speaking at conferences, for sales outreach and all this stuff now. I only get on it during the workday for work purposes or to share the message that we're trying to get out. So I didn't let go of that, but I let go of everything else. I canceled my Strava account. And if you don't know what Strava is, it's basically an endurance tracking app that ranks you and compares you to other runners in your area. And as a competitive person, I love that app because I can be the king of the mountain in my area. I can be the what's it called when you're like the fastest on a route?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think it's you earned a badge type of thing.
A badge,
or whatever.
and it ranks you and all this stuff. And
then you see other people,
and I get to creep on other people's training. And if there's somebody that maybe they're training for the same race, man, I can watch what they're doing and I can see how I compare. And like, it's a really cool app. I'll be honest. But it was really bad for me because it was feeding this kind of cockiness, prideful arrogance that I had as left over as a baseball athlete. You know, we kind of carry that as a badge of armor as an athlete of like, oh yeah, man, I'm stud. Like, and it's all rooted in insecurity, by the way, being on the other side of it now. We think we have to do that and talk about those things to make us dominant over our competitors. But all of that was rooted in insecurity and fear in me. But I had a lot of that. I was pretty cocky and arrogant, you know, as an athlete. And, you know, and so I just carried that over to Strava or whatever. So I didn't want to let go of that. And I didn't want to let go of all of the routes and all the stuff that I had accumulated. And it was like painful letting that go. Like, and so I grieved all of these things for weeks, you know, because this was in November. I was going to do it in December and I just didn't want to let go. It was just like, I just felt like stuff was getting pulled out of me. And I was just grieving the loss of it. I was grieving the loss of being able to get on Safari. I was grieving the loss of being able to look up things when I needed to. But I came up with this plan where I was going to block all social media. I was going to block Safari. I was going to block email. Well, at first I didn't block email. Eventually that came later. But basically making my smartphone into a dumb phone, basically. The reason I've kept my smartphone, and it's an iPhone 8. This was actually the first like real smartphone I've ever had.
I think they built that in 1910 too.
It's looking a little rough these days. Yeah. And it does stink because the new Apple's like intentionally slowing it down now. So it's starting to not function at all. So I'm like, you know what, maybe I just need to get the flip phone. But I did, you know, it is important, I think, to have our app on there. And there was a few things that again, looking at your phone as a tool, like there were a few things that were life-giving to me. And the only podcast that I ever listened to were spiritual podcasts, honestly, things that really built me up. And I started evaluating that. And I was like, well, I don't really want to let go of that because I don't listen to them very much. But I do drive a lot for my work, and a lot of times now I just drive in silence. I don't turn the radio or anything on, but sometimes it is nice to be fed with a spiritual podcast. In fact, I said I was listening to one this morning. And so I was like, you know what? I think those bring value to me, and I don't really struggle with healthy boundaries on that. Typically when I listen to them, I don't actually necessarily want to listen, but I make myself because I know it's good for me kind of thing. And so I kept podcasts on. I've kept maps on because I was like, I don't really want to have the atlas out, even though I love atlases. And, we always laugh. We used to travel like pirates when I was younger. So like when I would, went to school in Louisiana, there was no maps. And so we'd print out directions and like travel like a pirate with our map, but that's not convenient. And I was like, man, that doesn't, I'm not going to get sucked into maps.
Yeah.
So I kept maps on there. And just a couple things, like now I have Venmo because I feel like the whole world's on Venmo and sometimes you have to pay people on that, but just very few things. And so basically found out how to take those off on the phone through some of the Apple controls, and then had my wife set a password that I still don't know to this day. And if I ever, sometimes you do need to, have access to do something. It's been months since we've ever had to, or maybe in a year, I don't know, but every now and then maybe your phone like has an update or you've got to open a browser or something, but she has access to be able to do that. She knows what the password is. I don't know that password. And I never want to know that password, because all of this comes from the reason I had to set it up that way is because I'm very, very weak. And if I knew the password, if I had, and I know they have apps out there now that, you can restrict access to all those things, but then you can put in a code and just get it right back. Yeah. Like I'm going to just get it right back, man. Like I'm not strong enough to do that. And so, created a password that only she knows. And so again, it was kind of this empowering moment though, of like, when you step into what you think the next phase is that God's calling you to, and maybe it's just a little step, but even taking a little step at times, is just very, very empowering. And that's exactly what it did for me. Like it empowered me because I was like, wow, maybe I am taking the next step and being the person that God has created me to be. But also with the caveat of like, this is only gonna be 30 days. I can get it all back in 30 days. So start it, get into it. The first 2 days, painful. Like it was like an addict coming off of something. Like I would pick up my phone just to pick it up, and then I'd look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, I can't do anything. And I just kept coming back to it. Or when I was stressed or when I was anxious, I would pick it up, because I wanted to space out. I wanted to avoid those things that were getting to me. And eventually, after a couple of days, I started realizing I don't miss it at all. Like it wasn't that hard. And then what started happening is, wow, I'm more present with my kids. I'm having conversation with my wife on date night. I'm not, staring at my phone when we could be talking. Man, I haven't heard from this person in a while. I'm going to call them. So the intentional connection with friends and loved ones. And then just a richer, deeper life. And it's just so funny. Like, I lived in an era where cell phones didn't exist, like I have lived in that era and we were fine, now it just feels like we have to have them. I'm still have it right here. Right. Yeah. Like, I feel like I have to have this attached to me at all times. And it feels weird, even though I have limited access, it feels weird to not have it with me at all times, but what I found was just a lot of life-giving stuff. And of course, at the end of the 30 days, the story, it's like, I can't go back to where I was. Like I'm so much happier, so much more fulfilled, so much less anxious now than I was. And it didn't take everything away. Like I still have to work through those things. They're all still present, but they weren't being fed the fuel that I was feeding them prior. And again, not advocating that everybody has to do it the way I did it. I just know myself. And for me, that was the right approach and the right thing to do. For you, or anybody listening, like for you, it was, I just need to take off notifications. For Wade was, some not really necessarily restricting access on his phone, but taking the TVs out of his house, taking the Wi-Fi out of his house. So everybody has different approaches. And I think that's the right approach. Is we're all different. We all know, who we are, what we struggle with and what we need. But we have to spend time reflecting on that and being honest with ourselves. And again, all that comes from quiet reflection. And it always goes back to that, like we talk about purpose every time on this podcast, but it does, right? Like, I mean, we have to spend time thinking about that. And, we have some great tools and technology and resources out today that tell us really good insights about our sleep, that give us great insights about maybe even our stress levels. I mean, there's some apps out there that can do that. Some cool stuff, but I always go back to nobody knows you better than you. Right. And now maybe we need people to help us in that journey. Or actually not maybe, we definitely do. Maybe that's a good therapist. Maybe that's a pastor. Maybe that's a friend or spouse or loved one, whatever. I'm not saying go at this journey alone, but spending some time and being honest with yourself and reflecting, and then maybe coming back to those people, and talking to them about it. I mean, it can really take you a long way. And I think sometimes we just put everything on these devices or our Garmin's or whatever to tell us these data insights, and we really only know where those algorithms come from. So just don't diminish your own thoughts or your own calling because somebody or something else is telling you what you need to think and believe, or what your appropriate next step is. Like, you are in control of it's somewhat as a Christian. We are in control of most of our decisions. I wouldn't say we're in control of our own life, because as a Christian, you and I would say that like God's going to ordain a lot of different things for us, but you can take responsibility for them, and don't devalue your ability to make choices for yourself. That's one of the most empowering things we can do, is make choices for ourselves. And if you think that, man, I'm really called to take this next step on digital detox, and maybe this is a way I can do it, that's what you need to do. Because that could be the one thing that's holding you back from being the person you're created to be. Like, that could be the one thing. And maybe it's this first small step that you have to take, but taking that first small step can lead to an amazing journey, that it could lead to a journey that could take you to a place that you never thought you could end up or be at. And that's definitely where I'm at in my life. I just had to take the first step with the phone, and it's unlocked so many amazing things for me. But not only that step. I mean, there's been a lot of different steps I've gotten to me to have this conversation with you in this office with this company, that I never thought I'd be doing this. I thought I'd be playing baseball my entire life. I never thought I was a cocky, arrogant baseball player. But now looking back,
you do.
now I do. Looking back, I can see all that. But it was because I started just and I took small little steps that I thought were small, but they've just led me to a great place. And anybody listening to this they've done the same thing. Like, you've done the same thing in certain areas. So by no means am I saying that I've done everything right. With those steps, I've messed up a million times along the way too, or maybe interpreted what the next step needed to be incorrectly, but it still got me to where I needed to be. So I guess my message is just take the step. If you feel convicted from this conversation that you've been listening to, that, man, I've got to do something to get these boundaries a little bit more in check and to be more present to my loved ones. And maybe here's something that I think I can do that feels appropriate, then just do it. And then like I did, I was like, set a time frame on it. Hey, I'll do this for 1 week, 2 weeks, 30 days, and then reassess. And if it's not appropriate, then whatever. But if it is life-giving, if it does help you, if it does get you on your journey, don't stop, keep going.
Yeah. Well, I think people, you'll realize that too. I say people, that includes me. Whenever I first turned off my notifications, like immediately I saw a difference in like being present at home, especially. You turn those notifications off, or you delete an app that you get sucked into. Like, it's going to be hard. But like, just take it day by day. And that's what I was doing. I would catch myself a lot of times, like going to open up Instagram, and I was like, well, I'll get to it later, or or something. And also, other things like a lot of times my wife and I will I haven't been good about it lately, just being transparent, but my wife most nights has been plugging her phone up and setting it like on the nightstand that's not beside our bed. That's like, you have to get up to go get it, and mainly, so when she sets her alarm, she has to get up and go turn it off, but also that'll keep you off your phone. So it's like, it doesn't have to be deleting an app or getting rid of your TV or your Wi-Fi, but it can be that if you feel that's what it is. But I think like you said, just this conversation hopefully just help somebody be like, you know what? Yeah, I've been thinking about doing this and I've wanted to do this. I feel like I should do this.
Yeah.
Just give it a shot. And
do it.
If you do it for a week and you're like, no, it's not really impacting that much, or I don't want to do it, then that's fine. But
and obviously, you know, we want to be a resource too.
Yeah.
So if you're not a MoveWell client, that's fine. Like, just send us a message on social media. Email us at info@movewell.com if you need help. We'd be more than happy to help.
Yeah.
I mean,
or just give our feedback. Yeah.
Our mission statement is we want to bring leaders to life, and that's not just for our clients, right? Like, that's for all of society. And our vision is we want to show the world what's possible. And so if we can have people that are, you know, thriving in life and they're not distracted from the things that are most important in their lives, and they're fully present, like, isn't that, and as we're having this conversation, like, isn't that one of the main goals or meanings of life, is just to be present? Like, I mean, that's just really hitting me hard in this conversation, is like, we are just called to be present. And if we can be present, then we can, one, be the people we need to be to ourselves, but also to all those around us. So we want to help with that. So reach out to us. And I honestly mean that. Like, this is not us saying something to sound pretty or whatever. Like, we want to be a resource and a tool. We really live by our mission and vision statement. I mean, that's the whole point of this company, is to bring people to life. And if we can do that, and that's one small verse that we can contribute, and the powerful play, kind of paraphrasing Walt Whitman's poem, that's what we want to do. You know, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, definitely. So send us a message. That we never, don't ever feel like you're intruding. Of course, you hear, if you listen to the podcast, we get deep in conversations all the time, and we'd love to have those conversations with you offline as well. But before we start to close out, anything else that you wanted to touch on? That
I don't know.
I know there's a lot.
On this all day, I know you can go. I love this one.
You go all day, but I think to kind of wrap up, then I think also realizing, especially if you have kids, have a family, like, you taking these steps, being more present, like, you're going to see outcome there. You're going to see outcome at work. You're going to see outcome in your mental health, depending on if it's social media or whatever it might be. And if it's TVs, if it's iPads, tablets, whatever it might be, screen time in general, like, you're going to see an outcome from that. And your kids, if you have children, they're going to see that, and they're not going to have the standard set of, I have to have my phone all the time. I have to always, have a screen. And so obviously I think there's a time and place for, like, if you're on a long road trip, obviously, you might have your kid watching their iPad, but Emily, my wife, and I, we've been trying to be really intentional about not just putting her in front of a screen, just to make, like, and also we just love watching her play. Like, there's times where we're sitting on the couch and maybe we're watching a TV show, or we're just talking, and we just will, like, look at her, and she, like, has her Barbies or has her baby dolls, whatever. And she's, like, acting out like, oh, don't cry, baby. Like, it's just fun to, like, watch them do things like that and not just get stuck in front of the screen. That's a whole other episode. Like,
we could get both of our wives on and talk about the cognitive development, the negative impacts of cognitive development for kids and stuff, just looking at screens. I mean, there's so much crazy stuff and cool research coming out on that. But this quote comes to mind. We're talking about being present, and we have a friend that's was one of our accountants. He's now moved on, but his LinkedIn handle, if he's listening, he knows I'm talking about him. But it says, I just noticed this the other day. It says, wherever your feet are, be there. And I was like, that's so profound, right? And I think if we can limit distraction with our devices, then we can just be all there.
I love that. Again, we could probably go on forever about this. So maybe we'll bring on the real the smart people, our wives, next time. But anyway, I think that's a great conversation. And again, this is all just like food for thought. And this is something, like, if I would have heard somebody talking about this 4 years ago, I'd been like, well, whatever, shut up. Like, almost like maybe getting my feelings hurt because I'm like, this all hits me, a lot of it does. But again, just like small steps, take small steps. If there's something you just feel called to do, whether it's like, I know you can also do like the timer of how much you've been on your screen, like something as simple as that, turning off your notifications, whatever it might be. And if you ever have questions or like want feedback, just want to have a conversation around it, like Kevin said, just send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, comment on the podcast, email us info@movewell.com. But we appreciate you all tuning in. If you're watching the live stream, and if you're listening when the audio drops, we appreciate that as well. And we will catch you all next time.